Our agenda today is we have great success stories to share. We'll be doing that in a few moments. We have a main speakers today talking about interviewing. We felt like this was a great topic to kick off in the first of the year in January because, it's one thing to practice all the strategies, but what happens when you get the interview? That's what we have to focus on in order to reach our desired goals. We have sharing of active job leads. We'll have partner updates, and then we'll tell you what's going to happen next time at Job Club. The mission of Job Club is to provide a positive environment for job seekers to provide and learn best practices for the job search. We meet on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month, and you can find the schedule of topics at www.ukalumni.net/jobclub. Okay, am I having audio problems? Do that. Okay. We're good? Okay. I want you to meet the Job Club team. These are the facilitators. I'm Diana Doggett, and I'm an extension specialist with the University of Kentucky. We have Caroline Francis, who is the Director of Alumni Career Services at the UK Alumni Association. Amanda Shagney is the Assistant Director of Alumni Career Services. Nicole Waite is with Employment Specialist. She is a specialist with UK Steps with Temporary Employment. And we also want to give a shout out to Lizzie Cottle and Christy Kaufman and Queen Sullivan. They are also great attributes of our team, as well as Sunny Saylor and Suzanne Smith here at the Fayette County Extension Office. Job Club is currently hosted in a hybrid format, and that means that we're in person here at the Fayette County Extension Office in Lexington, Kentucky. We are on Zoom webinar. We have a chat moderator online available for you for questions, comments, shout outs to where you are listening from. So please let us know that in the chat box right now. We'd like to hear where you're from, and so that we can acknowledge just how far our outreach is today. We're also on Facebook Live, and that's view only, no chat moderator or job lead newsletter. We always make reference, especially to our newcomers, about our free Job Club resource packet. And that again is online on our website. And there's a whole host of resources there for you to take advantage of during your job search. So you'll find that of great interest. And I just invite you to do that because time and time again, we hear from those that have referenced it, used it, and have been very, very pleased to have that resource. We also want to invite you to join the Central Kentucky Job Club sharing community on LinkedIn. And that is an opportunity for you to stay connected all the time, not just during our sessions at Job Club. So if we get job leads that may expire or we got them the day after a presentation, we're going to post those on that LinkedIn site, and you can take advantage of that, as well as articles of interest that we will post from time to time. Employers and recruiters are always welcome at Job Club, and in-person employer guests may have 1-minute spotlights to share an active job lead with the group later on in the program. So if you are a recruiter and you are listening in today and you have a job lead, please let us know that at the conclusion of our presentation, and we would love for you to share that with our audience. Watch your email later on today, because we will be posting job leads that have been sent and shared with us earlier this week, this month, so that you will have access to those. We always want to point out that some attendees are conducting a confidential job search. So let's please be respectful of their privacy for the job search. Check out our job search related articles included in our job reminder emails as well. And we also make available our recordings of past presentations, and they are available again at our website, www.ukalumni.net/job club. So now we'd love to welcome our first time visitors, newcomers. If that's you, do we have anyone in our audience that is first time? Oh yeah. We have several here today. First time. We had several at our last session that were attending for the first time. If that pertains to you as a listening audience, would you let us know that in the chat box? We've got some more first times coming in, I think, in the back. So let us know that in the chat box. We'd love to welcome you as a unit to Job Club, and we hope that you find this very beneficial today. Again, you're going to receive a survey later on this afternoon. It's short. It's about 6 questions, and that will place you in our notification system for future programs. We really, really urge you to fulfill and send back that survey. You can scan the QR code on the screen. Then that will work as well, but we really need that information so that we can stay in touch with you about future programming. Well, this is really an exciting component of our day today because we have some awesome success stories. But before I share those, is there anyone in our audience or anyone in our listening audience that has a success story that they might like to just share briefly with us? How do we do?
Diana, online, we've had a success story. It's Kay from Brazil, and they shared that since the last Job Club, they scheduled 3 interviews. 1 follow-up interview, was offered a job and have accepted. And they encourage everyone to lean in to the wonderful people at Job Club. They've provided such valuable guidance and suggestions, and they cannot express how much they appreciate the work that goes into Job Club.
That's what keeps us ticking. That's what keeps us going, is getting such good news like that. Success stories don't always lead. We don't always just define those as, you know, the success of the goal of the job. We also say that there are successes along the way. And we want you to understand that that is part of the process. So if you have expanded your network, if you revised your resume, again, if you have an interview, if you have gone to our website and looked at any of the past recordings on any of the topics or strategies that you might feel that you need more information, that's success. That's part of it. So don't hesitate to share that in our chat box if you are doing due diligence in your search and you're finding fulfillment in that. Is there anyone in our audience that wants to share a success story today? Anything that's happened that we'd like to share? Okay, well, I do have some wonderful news here that I'm going to try to get through here really quickly, but they're so encouraging, and not only to you, I think, as job seekers, but I know they are to job facilitators, to our team. Okay. Hello. Yes. Please share my testimonial at Job Club tomorrow. I learned many, many things from dozens of speakers. I took pages and pages of notes. Over the months, I was able to attend meetings, both in person and on Zoom. The things below are the seeds that were planted deep down in my spirit. As a result of my participation in Job Club, I'm now on the career path that matches my passion and my skill set. Number 1, be humble enough to take a position that is lower than the last position you held. Learn all you can in that position and give 110% every day. 2, commit to being a lifetime learner. 3, utilize the tools offered in job clubs, such as the resume review and the elevator speech tutorial session. Number 4, serve others in your network. Number 5, find your joy in the process of the transition and remember to take care of yourself emotionally, mentally, and physically. And lastly, have the courage to take steps in the direction that you would like your career to go. One last thought, have an emergency fund in a separate bank account that is ideally 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Thanks so much for this life-changing organization, Brittany Fiore. So Brittany is with, she's a realtor and she is with Keller Williams Greater Lexington. So let's give Brittany a round of applause. Second, as a frequent job club attendee, I feel compelled to give an update on my most recent job search results. I have finally landed a job at UK through Steps. Over the past few years or so, I have actively been searching for career advancement options and opportunities and oftentimes relied on UK job club services. I've had help with resume, cover letter editing, job search resources, leads, engines, assistance, and support with questions and concerns. The list goes on. Finally, it has paid off. I landed a position in the College of Dentistry matching my previous work experience and background, and this, I'm sure, is just the beginning. I am grateful for the work you do. It really helps. Thanks, Mary. All right. And our last success story that has been shared within the last 2 weeks, Dear UK Job Club, I want to share the great news. I started working remotely this year with one of the most generous, progressive companies in today's crazy world. Your staff and program was definitely part of the success in my making progress. I was introduced to the UK Job Club years ago. Due to family caregiving demands, the pandemic, and other factors, it's been a long haul finding a permanent position. Even so, I continue to stay in touch with the Job Club via your resourceful emails with its links and training sessions listed. I also attended some meetings live and online. Please note, I did work as a highly engaged volunteer for years with AARP, which contributed greatly to being hired. When the opportunity to interview arose, I looked over your website and found your recorded talks from the most recent speakers on interviewing online. They were very helpful, and I followed the guidelines to prepare for the multiple interviews. Thank you for what you do for the community of Lexington and all of us striving to find a good job. Your staff is warm, caring, and resourceful, and that makes a big difference when we are dealing with the hardships of unemployment. Warmest regards, Christine Jackson. She is now a program analyst at AARP Kentucky. There you go. Well, that couldn't be a greater kickoff to today. We're all motivated. We're ready to do the great interview once we get this information today. So I know I'm excited, and so here we're going to lead right on into our presentation. And we are very, very thrilled to welcome 2 guest speakers from VACO. This is Caroline Snowden. She's business development. And we also have Connor Owen, and she is associate. So Caroline, Connor, we are just excited to hear what you have to share. We know that the interview is really the last round, and we know that you're going to give us all the expertise we need to make that count. Welcome.
Thank you, Diana. We are so excited to be here. So as Diana said, I'm Caroline Snowden. I'm an Associate of Business Development here at VACO, and this is Connor Owen, our recruiter. Today we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts and ins and outs of interviewing. So who is VACO? VACO is a startup and Fortune 500 company growing internationally, as well as about 40 offices here in the US. We've served over 3,500 clients and had 100,000 placements, so folks that we've paired with jobs. We cover multiple areas, including technology, accounting and finance, staffing, contract, which would be interim solution or contract to hire, as well as direct hire, which is where you are instantly an employee of the company that you compared with, as well as managed services. So as I mentioned, we are a growing company. Currently, we're sitting at above $1 billion valuation and hoping to continue to grow across the world.
So you got the interview and now you're like, what's next? And I know that can be really stressful, but prepping is very important next step once you do get that interview. So why is prepping important? I almost compare it to going on a vacation. You would never not research where you're going, not pack the right things. You wouldn't want to pack snowshoes to the beach. So, you know, you wouldn't not prep for a vacation. So why would you go to an interview and not be prepped for it? So it helps you definitely stand out amongst other candidates. So obviously most of the time companies are going to be interviewing multiple people. We don't see it very often where they're only interviewing one person. So it's definitely going to give you a leg up against others. It's definitely going to boost your confidence when you're prepared. Even just like this presentation, if Caroline and I had it prepared for it, we would have been a lot more nervous. So it gives you definitely a better confidence level when you prep for an interview. And then it also just displays preparedness to the interviewer. You don't want to go in frazzled or not know what you're doing or get tripped up or anything. So it definitely displays that preparedness. And then we're going to move on to some do's and don'ts as well. And then some of our highlights of our do's when we're interview prepping, because part of our company is interview prepping our candidates once they get an interview request from a company. One of our first things is we want the candidate to research the company beforehand. Logging on, seeing if they have a professional website, you know, researching who they're going to be meeting with, what their job title is. We kind of do this together when we interview prep. So Caroline will kind of go over the details of the company with them beforehand, but I just can't express enough how important that is, because you don't want them to be asking what you know about their company and you have nothing prepared and you kind of went in blind. I know it seems silly, but dress professionally. You'd be surprised, some people will show up in jeans or you know, maybe like a sweatshirt or something, and most of the time that's not going to give off a good first impression. We always say overdress no matter what position it is, because you only get one time to give off a first impression. So, you know, like for a woman example we may suggest like slacks and a nice sweater, or slacks and a blouse and a blazer. And then for men, we just say like dress pants, nice button down shirt, also a blazer if they have one. But that is just really important to give off that great first impression, to dress professionally. And then, you know, you don't want anything, one tip we do give them is to not wear something like highlighter pink or like too, I guess, distracting, because then your interviewer is really concentrated on what you're wearing and not what you're saying. So that's a tip we give some people. Also have questions about the company. So once you do your research, maybe have a couple of things to show, it shows your interest. You know, you don't want to go in and not know anything about them, like we were saying. So if you have a question about the role or about the company, it's really going to show that you did your research beforehand. And then we're highlighting back on confidence. So part of confidence is sitting up straight, keeping that eye contact. I know a lot of people feel awkward giving eye contact, but it's very respected. A lot of interviewers will notice if you're keeping that eye contact and not looking around the room or looking distracted. And then also tone of voice. We suggest our candidates not to go in too monotone. Most companies will actually not like when someone is very monotone and not fun to talk to. And you want to show like excitement for the role and show that you know, you're not going to be someone sad to be around, because these are the people that you're going to be working with. But also on the other end of that spectrum, you also don't want to come in too like crazy or loud or talking over your interviewer, those kind of things. So that kind of leads me into my don'ts. But I did want to pause for a sec because I saw a couple chat things come up here. what is career webpage for VACO? We actually have our website at the end of our PowerPoint, so that will come up at the end. Okay, that looks like the only one we missed. So then that kind of leads us into our don'ts. First thing we always say is don't bring up compensation. So for example, don't go into the interview and be like, yeah, that's great about the role, but how much does it pay? Mainly because, first of all, it's going to make it sound like you're only there for the money, and I know we work to get money, but that's not going to come off very well if that's the first thing you bring up. But also, we tell people not to bring up compensation because you never know, if you give them a really low number, for example, and they were willing to pay higher, then you don't want to, put yourself in a box. So we just suggest not bringing up compensation at all. Because usually if you get the role, you're going to see an offer, you're going to get that chance to look through your offer. And then that's when you can kind of talk about those things. But during the interview, we wouldn't suggest it, especially during a first interview. And then this is a big tip we give people, but don't talk about irrelevant experience. So that means, say you have your resume that you already submitted to the company to get the interview. That would be like bringing up a role that's not on your resume. We suggest not to do that, just because you're bringing up something and they're going to basically look at you and say, well, why is that not on your resume? And then you're getting off track, and then you're not really focused on like the good things that were on your resume. A big one, and a lot of candidates just get nervous and accidentally do this, but we suggest not to speak negatively about a previous employer. You really want to put a positive spin on it. Make something a learning experience. Say you learned a lot of skills there and you want to apply it to your next role. But I will tell you, most of the time, if you talk negatively about a previous employer, that new employer is not going to want to bring on a teammate that's going to do that, because then they're going to wonder if they're going to do that about their company. Going back to the tone of voice thing, you don't want to interrupt your interviewer. You want to let them finish and then kind of respond to what they're saying. And then you also don't want to hold back your personality. Like I said, they're going to like very nice people who can talk, fluently and not get tripped up and say a lot of ums. And I know that's really hard. Even I do it in this presentation. I know it's hard and you want to do those things as a human being, but if you can try to just get that great balance of, hey, I have a personality, but not like an overbearing one, but that's that perfect middle ground to find. And then I'm going to pause again for these questions. Any tips for interviewing? That's an awesome question. We actually have that in one of the slides as well. And then Alicia said, don't take your phone. That's a really good one. We didn't even think about putting that in here, but yeah, don't take your phone or leave it on loud or anything. That was a really good tip. But that leads us into virtual versus in person. We get both. It depends on the company. Some companies will even switch between those two. They may sometimes do their interviews virtually, and then sometimes they want to do them in person. So it's good to be prepared for both. When I'm interview prepping candidates for virtual interviews, there's some things they sometimes don't think about. So we suggest having as solid of a background as you can when you're doing a virtual interview, so it's not too busy back here. Sometimes people may not have like a very solid wall, but for example, like the wall behind us has just a couple like pictures. That's fine too, just as least busy as you can. Also a quiet room. You'd be surprised, some people may have like family members walking back and forth behind them, or someone yelling in the background or interrupting their interview. You want a quiet area where you can talk and not get distracted. Good lighting is one. So sometimes, how it is, you might have a darker screen because your room's not well lit. So we actually suggest that the candidate practice with their lighting, whether you have like, for example, a ring light or a lamp you can put behind your computer, just something to really show your whole face, because they want to see you. With virtual interviews, you're not getting a lot of that chance to show your personality as much because you're behind a screen. So you want to set up as much success as you can around you, which leads me into level camera angle. Also another one that some candidates don't think about, but you don't want your camera, face down low where it's up on your face, or up too high where You want it as level with your face as possible. So like I like to say, you don't want the grandparents taking pictures down here. You want the level one like this. And then also, most virtual links you can test beforehand. Some people don't know that, but for example, Teams or Zoom, especially Microsoft Teams, you can actually test your link at any time. So sometimes we'll tell candidates even the day before, if you want to use your link and log on and make sure that it looks right and practice with it, you can. And then also connection. You know, you don't want to have Wi-Fi issues. So I would suggest even like an hour before the interview, practice again. Make sure that your internet's working. And then also block off enough time. You don't want to feel rushed. You never know how long the company had planned on having you there. So, you know, you don't want to only leave 10 minutes for you to have this virtual interview or anything like that. One side note I did want to mention, I know a lot of candidates are actually like currently working and maybe not readily available. So if you have to take a virtual interview from your car, that's okay. Most companies are going to see that you're currently working, but you want to maybe try as much of these bullet points as you can. So maybe not be holding the phone and going like this in the car. Make sure it's set up somewhere and that you're making it as professional as you can if you have to take it in the car. And then we'll move on to in person. So it really goes back to the basics, guys. You want to arrive 15 to 20 minutes early, mainly so you can sit there for a sec, collect yourself, make sure your notes are ready, you're not in a frantic state. It's just giving you that allotted time to really breathe for a moment. It also helps if you run into traffic or you get lost. So definitely what I do suggest to my candidates is look up the company location beforehand. Make sure if you have to go through any gates or if you have to ask permission to get through somewhere, you really want to be prepared for those kind of things. Again, dress professionally in person. This time they can see the bottom of you versus like a virtual interview. So make sure you know you have shoes you can walk in if you have to walk across like a company campus. Nothing that'll get you too tripped up, and maintain that confidence level. And then again, know who you will be meeting with, because most likely you're going to approach them first or have a receptionist or an admin take you to them. So you want to be prepared on who they are, so that way you can spot them and you know, hey, that's who's interviewing me and I know they're heading this way. And then it's okay to bring a notebook. I do think some candidates get nervous that they may not be able to bring anything with them. You definitely can bring a notebook. There's nothing wrong with taking notes during your interview or have like questions prepared. You probably don't want to have like a whole packet of anything, but it's definitely okay to bring a notebook or like some type of portfolio with you. It shows, again, goes back to that preparedness. And then me and Caroline say a firm handshake goes a long way. There's nothing wrong with you asserting and putting your hand out and squeezing their hand. Do it. It just shows that confidence again, and it shows maybe you're a little more old school and you're able to have those conversations and not be awkward while you're talking to somebody in person. But we just think it goes a long, long way. Let me double check these questions real quick. That's a great suggestion, Kay. There's nothing wrong with asking if you can take notes. I think that's a great way to do it. I think if you ask them if they mind, and you can put it away if that interviewer gets distracted by that, but I think that's a great suggestion. And then circling back to VACO's website. So VACO works really hard to keep our website pretty modernized. So I'm going to let Caroline kind of talk about all of those things and let her take the floor on that.
Yeah, so at VACO.com, you can sort by office location. I know some of the alums that are joining us today may not be in the Lexington area still. Our office serves Central Kentucky. We also have a Louisville office that serves the Louisville and Indiana area. But you can find your closest VACO office and find jobs in the area that you want to work. You can also find interview tips, a job search bar, additional resume tips and templates. The benefits of working with a recruiter, a lot of people don't realize, but the value that you can get from working with a recruiter is free of charge to you. Really, all of this is free to candidates, and similar to Job Club, they're just great benefits in your job search that can help you find the right role faster. And then there's also some facts and questions there as well. But feel free to hop on our website. I know that was an earlier question, and find the best VACO office for you. And this is where you can get a hold of both of us. So as we mentioned, Connor works on the candidate side, serving you all in your job search and matching you to those perfect positions. And that is her email. And then below, if you are in a position where you're looking for staffing assistance, I can be the best resource to you. I help out folks on the client side. And then now we'll open it up if there's any additional questions.
You'll continue to watch that chat box for questions to come in. I'm Caroline Francis, Director of UK Alumni Career Services. Thank you, Caroline and Connor, for the excellent presentation and great tips. We know that you all conduct hundreds of interviews each month, and you are the experts. So thank you for sharing with us. I have a few additional tips that I'd like to share, and I'll also call on my colleagues that if they want to add anything to do so. I'm with UK Alumni Career Services. Anyone can join the UK Alumni Association and take advantage of 2 career counseling sessions a year. But a few additional things that I'll add, and Lindsay, chat moderator, interrupt me if additional questions come in, and we can pause and take them as we go.
Caroline, this is Christy. We have someone who has a question online, Sean Samuels. So I'm going to give him speaking privileges. Okay, Sean, you should be able to go ahead and unmute and ask your question now. Can you hear us, Sean? Oh, he doesn't have a microphone. So Sean, if you can go ahead and put your question in the chat, that would be great.
We'll come back to that. And Caroline and Connor, feel free to jump in and answer any of these questions from your perspective. And I know we have a couple here in the room from the floor as well. But I can't reiterate enough the importance of prepping, learning everything you can about the company. You know, what might have they been in the news for lately? Who are their competitors? Are their competitors coming out with any new products? Or why is the industry in the news? Maybe it's being impacted by this potential looming recession that we're hearing about daily. So learn everything you can about that company and that industry and why they might be in the news. Also, find people that work there. If you can find people that work at that company, have a chat, learn a little bit about what they like most about working for that company. This will all help give you a better picture of what that company culture might be like. And perhaps if they know you well enough, they can even put in a good word with the interview team. I'll pause here for questions that have come in.
Yeah, it looks like Sean had asked, should you take notes if you have bad handwriting? Sean, I would say it's a personal decision. Good question. I don't think there's anything wrong with it because you can read it and you're probably going to be the one reviewing those notes. They're probably not going to be looking at them. So don't worry too much if don't think they're going to like judge your writing or anything. As long as you're not, putting it right, giving it to them afterwards, as long as you're keeping it and you're able to read it. I think that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And then, so sorry, Miss Caroline, I was going to let VACO Caroline answer. Does VACO recruit for local, state, and federal government?
Go ahead.
So it's kind of an office by office answer. So it is something that VACO has done before. Currently, we don't have any roles at our location in that, but they are things that come up. And it would just be best to check with the VACO office affiliated with the market that you're trying to break into.
While additional questions may be coming in, I'll add a few more thoughts on interviewing. Be sure to always put a positive spin on why you are no longer with your former employer. It comes across negative if you say anything at all negative about the employer or why you're no longer there. You need a short, positive, truthful explanation if asked why you're no longer there, but be so careful about coming across toxic. When that happens, the interview team, naturally puts up a guard. So just be very careful and practice it till it's smooth and that you're coming across in a positive way versus a negative way on explaining that situation in the interview. Questions to be prepped for. The tell me about yourself question is very common at the beginning of the interview. And our VACO reps would love for you all to chime in on this one and some good ways to handle this question. But this is something you can practice in advance. Get very comfortable telling a little bit about your past that's relevant to the job of the hour, a little bit about what you can bring to them based on that job description, and then why you want to work for them. Show some enthusiasm, show that, flatter them a bit on why you want to work for them. And I'll pause here and let our VACO reps share a little more on that question, because from the get-go, that can make or break you.
Yes, it definitely goes back to being prepared. So I saw Michelle Caudell had put the STAR approach here. I did want to highlight that really quick before you dive into that, because that's definitely a really cool review to do beforehand. It'll also help with that tell me about a time. But yeah, I also don't think there's anything wrong kind of talking about yourself personally. You just don't want to go off on a tangent about you personally. So I would maybe highlight, I went to this school if it's relevant to the role and got this degree, and then I decided I wanted to move here, or those are like the personal things I think is okay to talk about. And then like Caroline said, maybe highlight a couple of things. Reviewing the job description beforehand, I would pull a couple of those things out and say, I noticed on your description it talked about this. Here's an example of one time that I did that, but that brings it back to the professional level. But I think if you get that perfect blend of like professional and personal, I think that always comes off a good way. And then I'll let Caroline let you guys know if she has any other examples.
Yeah, piggybacking off what Connor said, I think traditionally people were used to being asked, what is your weakness? And I think people tend to overthink that question. I think the STAR method is nice, or the tell me about a time, because it's an opportunity for you to demonstrate growth or interest. So if you took a pivot in your career, or if you took some time off and reevaluated or switched fields or whatever it may be, it's a really good opportunity to just emphasize interest as well as growth. I think keeping a growth-minded or role-focused tone in answering those questions is also something I hear about a lot on the client side. They really want to know what's relevant to the job. You want this job, and any kind of questions they may have about anything on your resume that may be different or gaps or anything like that, just focusing on kind of how you got to this point, and like Connor said, keeping it to the point but personal.
Yeah, because sometimes you may even have an interviewer that gets off track and tells you maybe their life story, or so sometimes even knowing ways you can loop them back into the professional side of it, I think that's another reason to be like ready and prepared, even if they tell you about themselves. So
Fabulous strategies. Any other questions before I share a little more?
I think I saw that someone had asked good questions to ask within your interview. So asking about a company's mission statement and values, which I think Michelle had touched on, asking why do you like working here? What was your journey to this company or to this position? And what kind of growth you see for the company. So asking about their 5-year plan, or looking into any community service things they might have done and expressing interest in that.
That's wonderful, Caroline. And then a big one we always put at the end, we think is a wonderful question, but are there any reservations you have about me moving forward in the process. Because it's going to give you another chance if they're having a reservation. They may tell you, and sometimes they may not, but they may tell you, and you may have a chance to talk through that reservation before you leave, rather than just leaving it open-ended and then wondering about that reservation they had about you.
Great strategy on that. Also, be prepared to briefly walk the interview team through your resume, where you would pick a couple of highlights from each of your most recent positions that are relevant to the job. And that shows also that you're prepared, that you're succinct if you can do that. That's often asked at the beginning of the interview. Can you just briefly walk us through your resume? So practice that, be prepared to do that as well. Back to the STAR or the SARA responses, you are going to get behavioral interview questions. Situation, task, action, result. It's just a good short story. Where you complete each of those pieces in your response. Don't forget the results section. Sometimes people tell the story, but they don't really tell how it turned out. So what was the result? Anytime you can use metrics, dollars, numbers, percentage, or show that what you did was incorporated in other departments or written into the manual for the company, or that you won an award for it. Those things always get some extra points in the interview. But another way to prep for those STAR questions is just highlighting that job description. What are the top 3 or 4 things they are asking for in that job description? And think of an example, a very specific example of when you did that somewhere. And just type that up in advance, practice it. There's a good chance you'll get to use that in the interview. Another way to do that to prep would be think on your career. What are 3 or 4 things I'm really proud of accomplishing in my career? And type those up in a STAR format, very specific situation, task, action, result. And it's fine to have those with you in your portfolio when you go into the interview. And if you need to reference or take a look at it, that's no problem at all. Other questions before I move on?
Caroline, I did want to piggyback off that point about results. So something that helps in selling yourself to an interviewer, they love if you can quantify that impact. So whether that's I saved the company X amount of dollars, I started a program that affected 100 attendees or whatever it may be. And a good way to do that is to, if you know you're in a position currently, but you're thinking about making a change, it's a lot easier to do that when it's fresh on your mind and you have access to all the information while you're still part of that company. So keeping kind of a positive record of things you've done that you would want to brag on yourself for. Also, I think it's nice to look at if you're kind of having a bad day, you want to remember that you really are great in your position and you do have value in your company. Kind of keeping that short list ready. So when you do take a jump, you have this list of options to answer your STAR question.
Excellent. Always encourage.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, I was going to say it kind of leads into Joe was saying, it's hard to talk about yourself and feel comfortable bragging on yourself. So piggybacking off of that, Joe, that's completely natural. I know sometimes it is hard to talk about ourselves. So what I always suggest is go practice with somebody that is either your loved one or a friend that's like very open-minded and will let you practice and will give you good feedback. Not somebody that will knock you down or anything, or if you genuinely don't have that kind of person in your life. I know it sounds cheesy, but like practice in the mirror. There's nothing wrong with you, talking to yourself and making sure you're getting comfortable. I think that practice will really help. And then obviously recruiters can really be a resource too. I know I give my candidates pep talks, or I let them practice with me and I'll give them honest feedback. So those are some suggestions if you want to just kind of build your confidence with talking about yourself, so you can kind of highlight those things Caroline was talking about.
And then for those that are also members of the Alumni Association and utilize the career services, we definitely can do mock interviews with you as well and prep. Another thing we share with our clients is to have a leave behind piece. or a portfolio that you take to the interview, you may have a chance to reference that. And we've talked in past webinars on what to include in that, but maybe you put together a 30, 60, 90-day plan with what you would do if you receive that position. You could also put in there samples of testimonials or examples of your work that might be relevant to the target position of the hour. Other questions that have come through? I'd like to reiterate, while we may have any last minute questions, we have a fabulous archived Zoom presentation for Job Club that Amanda did recently on salary negotiation. So please go to the website and watch that and be prepared so that you're more comfortable when that time comes. Also, we have wonderful presentations archived on resumes and references. So those are good ones to go back and watch on how to choose your references and strategies for updating your resume. And we'll continue to have some resume programs coming up in the future as well. Looks like we may have had any additional questions to come through. Okay, if not, I'd like to thank our guest presenters today, Caroline and Connor. You all were fabulous. Do we have any additional questions from the floor for our panelists today? We appreciate all the in-person attendees, and if you'll stay afterwards, we'll practice your 30-second commercials, and we'll have some networking exercises we'll do with you as well.
Thank you all. We appreciate you all having us.
Next slide. At this time, we would like for any employers that are online to raise your hand, and we'll give you 30 seconds to share an active job lead. We do have employers here today in our live audience that would like to share a job lead. We'll do that first. We have representatives from the FBI with us today that are going to share about their recruiting needs currently.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Caroline, and I'm from the Louisville FBI field office. I'm here with a little unique recruiting thing. We recruit not only for Louisville, but we recruit nationwide. I think when people think FBI, they think special agents and intelligence analysts, but we have hundreds of different types of positions from HR to social media. We hire medical staff, mechanics. All of those postings can be found on FBIjobs.gov. They tend to rotate out on about a quarterly basis. So if you're looking now and you don't see something that is the right fit for you, just keep checking back. There's always new postings on there. And then we'll be around if anyone has any questions. Thanks.
Thank you all so much for being with us today from the FBI. And it is interesting to know what a wide range of positions you all have. So I hope our audience will go to your website and look for those. And anything you email us, we'll put in the newsletter. Okay. Any job leads from our virtual audience? Okay. Next slide. Now we have some job club news from our facilitator programs. Fayette Cooperative Extension, as well as the extension partners in all of the 120 counties of Kentucky, have amazing programming. Such a variety of programming. I know this time of year I'm especially interested in the gardening programs, but do check out the extension websites for your local counties. Extension is federal. We do have a fabulous team of extension agents across the state of Kentucky, and please attend and support their wonderful work that's going on in your communities. Now we have an update from our UK HR Steps partner, Nicole, and she'll share some job leads with UK Steps. Nicole?
Hello, can you all hear me okay? Okay, great. All righty. So I am going to list some jobs here in the chat. But I just want to mention for those who are new to STEPS or have not heard about STEPS, we are temporary employment within the University of Kentucky Employment Office. So we're all a team here. We're not a separate entity. So STEPS is a great way to get your foot in the door with the University of Kentucky. Many of our employees, including myself, the director, and higher ups, have started in STEPS and transitioned into regular positions. It's a great way to come in and gain live experience, build up that resume. Yeah, just networking, just a really great way to get your foot in the door. If your goal, of course, is to obtain regular employment or full-time regular employment, then once again, this is a great place to get started. And I do want to mention that if you do work full-time hours while you're in a STEPS position, you do qualify for medical, dental, and vision insurance. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and highlight some jobs there. I have a couple administrative jobs, payroll, some coordinator positions. And if you don't have time to copy and paste all of that, this will be provided in our Job Club newsletter. So once again, I'm Nicole Wade here at the University of Kentucky with STEPS. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you, Nicole.
Caroline, this is Christy. We have a couple of employers online who sent their information in the chat for their emails and what job openings they have. So just to let everyone know in person that those will be shared in the email that's sent out later today.
Great. We really appreciate our employer partners, and I can't stress enough the importance of checking that LinkedIn website, the LinkedIn page regularly to see job leads. We post job leads in there every day that employers send us. So a wide variety of things are on that LinkedIn page, as well as the newsletter that you'll get later today. Again, alumni career services are open to anyone. Members, active or life members of the UK Alumni Association, which anyone can join, are eligible for 2 career counseling sessions a year as a benefit of membership. Next time, we'll be on Valentine's Day, February 14th. We have a wonderful presenter who has been with us before, Shelly Trent. She'll be speaking on Beat the Bots, get your resume past the applicant tracking system, which can be a challenge. Shelly is very knowledgeable in our field and will give you some fabulous strategies on helping your resume get through that system so that it will be actually read and considered by the hiring team. Again, please register for those in advance to attend virtually, and we always welcome an in-person audience of both job seekers, people that may be underemployed or thinking about making a career transition or coming back to work. If you're local and can join us in person, you'll benefit from some additional assistance in your job search by joining us personally. And in closing today, if nothing else has come up in the chat box, we'd like to thank you so much for joining the Job Club, and we hope to see you in the future. Please let us know when you get your next job lead or offer or have a success story. We want to celebrate with you and encourage you. So good luck the next 2 weeks on sending in job applications and resumes, maybe circling back to companies that you haven't heard from. And we hope this information will help you get to the next step in your job search.